Is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. 4 out of every 10 women say they've experienced violence at the hands of an intimate partner. And among men, a quarter report being victims. As the government shutdown continues, there are worries that escaping domestic violence could become even harder. According to Politico, hours after the government shutdown, employees who provide federal support to organizations that help victims of domestic violence were furloughed because of a funding lapse. We talked to Harmony House about issues that could lead to domestic violence.
Or control issues. Those things are already existing in those households, and obviously external factors, what's going on in society, concerns about food insecurity, those can only just obviously exacerbate those issues and sometimes bring to light, more violent tendencies.
Harmony House leaders say the first 72 hours after a survivor leaves their abuser are the most dangerous. If you need their services, you can contact them through their emergency line at the number on your screen to speak with an advocate. You can also head to their website. It's myharmonyhouse.org.